Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone out there. My name is Christopher Manning Jr., and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about mental health issues. And today's topic is ADHD. Let's talk about ADHD, real, raw, and uncut. I'm going to be 1,000% real with you guys, 1,000% raw. I'm not going to cut anything out. I have ADHD myself, so I twiddle my fingers, I tap my feet. I can't sit still to save my life. And with this disorder, I've also developed a stuttering issue. So if you hear me stutter throughout this, you can laugh. It's okay because I laugh at myself. And so today we're gonna be talking about ADHD and ADD. And first, I want to let you guys know that this is something that's really personal to me. This is something that's really close to me, and I find that a lot of people don't really talk about it because they think that since it's so common, everyone should know about it. Everyone should talk about it, but we don't. Everyone doesn't talk about it. Everyone doesn't know about it. So ADHD is known as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. You also have ADD, which is attention deficit disorder. They kind of go hand in hand with each other. So when we talk about mental health issues, of course, you have your main ones. You have depression, anxiety, you have your stress, autism, schizophrenia, things like that. Those are the ones that you hear about on the daily. Those are the ones that, a lot of people bring up. Oh, I have depression. I'm very anxious. Children in school that you met with autism. Kids with autism are some of the best people I've ever met in my life. But what we don't tend to talk about a lot now is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now, I'm going to be reading off a couple bullet points I have here for you guys to get you more initiated into the topic so you can kind of follow along with what I'm talking about and, what I'm getting into here. So, ADHD and ADD was known as hyperkinesis or minimal brain dysfunction, and it affects about 3 to 5% of children and about 2 million American children. Now, that's a lot of kids. 2 million American children is a lot of kids. And for it to be that many kids, I myself at least would like to think that there would be a better way to handle it. Because, a lot of times they want to give children medicine and they want to feed them these pills and stuff like that. But these pills sometimes have long-lasting effects on these children. When you take them for so long as a child, they can develop long-lasting effects. Even they have short-term effects. You never know. Like, when you go in and you see a kid with ADHD, or a kid with ADHD, and one day they're hyper as hell when they wake up in the morning, and in school sometimes they can't focus, sometimes they're very energetic, and then the next day they are the complete opposite. You're like, whoa, bro, what happened? Like, what's wrong? But it's because they took those pills, and it's like their whole personality changes. And sometimes the pills don't work on certain people. Sometimes that child may take that pill in the morning at 6 in the morning before they go to class. By the time 11 o'clock hits, that's lunchtime. That's when, everybody's supposed to be out and about having fun, being hyper, releasing that energy. And that child is either still suffering from the effects of the medicine, so they don't want to play. They just want to go to sleep. Or the medicine's wearing off and they're just now starting to get that energy back, and now for the rest of the school day they're very energetic. They can't focus. They're inattentive. You know so as a community, as people, as scientists, psychologists, sociologists, I think that there should be a way to troubleshoot these issues without giving these children medicine. And it starts out as an adolescence. ADHD and ADD starts out as an adolescence, but it can continue into your adult life. And there are more and more cases of adults having ADHD and ADD from their childhood. Now, we're in 2020, going on to 2021, and there have been leaps and bounds in medicine. Leaps and bounds in medicine. But in the 1990s, it was known as the decade of the brain. That is where we first started to make new medicines and things to combat the effects of ADD and ADHD. Now, a lot of people don't know what the symptoms may be for ADD and ADHD, and I got a list here for you guys to let you know what are the three main symptoms for a child with ADHD. Something that you can recognize. So these symptoms are inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. IHI, if you want to put it in acronyms. IHI. So when you see a child that's very inattentive, or they seem pretty hyperactive, or they tend to act on impulse, instead of looking at them like, yo, why is this kid acting like this? This kid is weird. Don't look at them like that, because it'll just make them feel bad. Try to take a step back and understand them. Understand the child. Understand, okay, they're doing this. Well, I know that the symptoms for ADHD are this. Let me talk to the kid. Let me understand why they're acting like this, or why do they feel so energetic. You know? And a lot of kids with ADD and ADHD have a specific language disability. Like I mentioned earlier, I have ADHD and I have a stuttering issue. I have a stuttering problem. And a lot of other kids may develop stuttering problems, or they can't read as fast, or they read too slow, or, sometimes kids with Tourette's have ADHD, you know? And it's like, you see, ADHD can have all of these other different things that are attached to it. It's not necessarily just ADHD or ADD. There's a lot more things that go into it, Now, a lot of sociologists and psychologists have been doing longitudinal studies, and there is now increasing evidence supporting that ADD and ADHD is starting to elevate the risk of later depression. But this finding isn't, very much clear to us yet, and we don't have solid proof. But they're getting there. They're starting to pinpoint it and get down to the bottom of it. Now, if ADHD and ADD can cause later depression, and we all know about depression. Depression is very much real. Depression is something that is very, very serious. And so is ADHD. Now, if these two mental health issues if ADHD can link to depression, and there's a way that we can help these children with ADHD and give them some sort of outlet without using medicine, without having to put them on some sort of pill or liquid medicine, if there's a way that we can combat this in order for them to be more calm, and for people to understand them without having to give them the medicine, then that would be great, because then they could look at themselves and be like, okay, I have this, but I know I'm still a great person. I have a big heart, and a lot of kids have big hearts. But if you add on depression onto ADHD, that can make things 1,000 times worse. Depression is very serious. Depression it's not always, oh, I'm just sad. No, depression can be plenty of things. You can sleep all day. You don't want to eat. You don't want to socialize. You stay in your room all day. Maybe if someone has depression, and you see them, all they do is just sit on their headphones and listen to music all day. That can be something, You never know what symptoms depression may express. And with ADHD, if you find you had a kid that's very energetic and things like that, and attach that with depression, and all these things just come into play, it's like, oh, okay, now this is getting kind of serious. So why don't we figure something out to combat it before it gets that serious, And if we associate depression with ADHD, the way that it's usually brung up is through peer relationships and academic attainment. Now, we all know that having that relationship with your peers is something that is very, 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 it's needed. Something that we really, really need, because without having friends or family or anything like that, things can get kind of rough. You always need somebody in your corner. You always need somebody to talk to when you're feeling down. Sometimes you don't want to talk to a therapist. Sometimes you don't want to talk to, family. Maybe you need that best friend that's going to sit there and just listen to you, who's not going to talk back. You just want them to listen. But kids with ADHD and ADD have that problem where they're so hyper, they're so energetic that other kids are, they draw kids tend to fall back on them. They don't want to be friends with them because this kid's too hyper. He doesn't know how to calm down, or this kid can't even pay attention in class. Why would I want to be friends with him? Or he doesn't even think twice. He just reacts on impulse. You know what I mean? And they get all these excuse me, they get all these different notions about a child with ADHD without really knowing what's wrong with them. So now the kid with the mental health issue, he or she is sitting there and they're wondering, well, what's wrong with me? Why don't others want to hang out with me? Why does nobody want to become friends with me? Why am I being shunned in a sense? Everyone else is out playing, but nobody wants to play with me. That's a child's thoughts. Because at one point in time, everybody has gone through a phase where people don't want to talk to them and you feel hurt, and now you want to force yourself upon them to like you, and then they'll just fall back even more. That's how a child with ADHD feels. And even us as adults, we need that those peer relationships. We need that social environment to thrive, because sometimes you can't do it all on your own. And when children are going through things like that, it can also affect their academics. It can affect their studies, because they're so focused on, well, people don't like me. People, they look at me funny because I do this, or I have a stuttering problem. So people laugh at me, and now they're hurt. Now they can't focus in class. Now all they're thinking about is, well, why am I being made fun of? Why am I being talked about? And their grades can slip. Their grades can slip, and that's when things go bad. And that's something we just don't need. Now, when I was looking more into this, when I was looking more into ADD and ADHD, this is something that I found very, very interesting. So, most kids with ADD or ADHD have at least one parent in the household with undiagnosed symptoms, or someone in their ancestry, such as a grandparent, like a grandmother, grandfather, has had it before and didn't know. They were just undiagnosed. And that stuck out to me, because I'm the only one in my family who has known ADHD. But who's to say that my father didn't has it and doesn't know, or my mother, or even my grandmothers? I never knew my grandfathers, but my grandmothers. Who's to say they didn't have it? Or even my grandfathers. Who said they didn't have it and pass it on to me? Maybe it skipped a generation and went on to me. You never know. So now it's like, well, if I have it, who else has it and just doesn't know? But a lot of parents now are starting to show, say, hey, I may have this. And like I said earlier, ADHD can lead into the adult life. And adults with ADHD who have kids have now been given the option recently to take part of a behavioral parent training for parents with ADHD, and how they can help their children who have it. Because if a parent has ADHD and your child has ADHD, how are you going to help your child with ADHD? How are you going to be able to sit down and talk with them and say, hey, look here, you may have this problem. This may be what's going on, and this may be, why you act a certain way. And it's been working. A lot of the times, it's kind of hard, but it's been working. They're trying to work out the kinks and stuff like that and have it go a little smoother, but they're working on it. And ADHD to me is like I said earlier, is very close to me. And in the Black community, we don't, as our parents don't like to think of mental health issues as something serious. And I brought this up earlier in our talk. I brought this up earlier. I'm going to touch a little bit more on it for a few minutes here. A lot of Black parents in a lot of Black households, they tend to look at mental health issues such as depression and ADHD and ADD and anxiety and stress. They look at it as something that's wrong with you. They say, hey, look, this is your issue. You need to figure it out because nothing's wrong with you. You're just acting out or you're acting a certain way because you want attention. But that necessarily isn't always the deal. Sometimes there are underlying issues with that child or with that person that they really need help. Not necessarily medical help, but sometimes they just need somebody to talk to, somebody to relieve that tension that they have. And they try, in the black community, they try to rationalize it or give it some sort of religious meaning. They say, oh, well, nothing's wrong with you. You just want to act out. Or maybe you just need to talk to God and figure things out. Well, sometimes, that doesn't work. And I'm not always the problem, you know? Because as a child, I tap, like I said, I tap my feet, I fiddle my fingers. As a child, I got in trouble a lot for things like that. I got in trouble because I couldn't sit still. I got in trouble a lot because I would just, sometimes I would just talk out loud, or I would answer a question without raising my hand because I acted on impulse. I didn't think, oh, well, let me raise my hand first. No, I would just say the first thing that came to my mind. I'd be right. I was a smart kid, but I would get in trouble. And as a man, I hope and pray to one day that I can have my own children, and I would want to understand why my child is doing things that I used to do. Like, why is my kid tapping their feet all the time? Why is he or she fiddling him or her fingers? Why are they acting like that? And knowing that I have ADHD, I can be like, okay, well, let's just let it play out for a little while, and let's see how this goes. Let's see where it goes. Maybe it's just a phase, but sometimes there can be, underlying things that goes on with it. So then at that point, I would take my child to a psychologist or something like that, so they can figure it out. But that doesn't happen a lot in the black community. A lot of the times it's shunned or it's frowned upon because you have some sort of mental health issue, and they don't want the family name to look bad. You know what I mean? And that's just not cool with me. That doesn't sit right with me. That's something that not even as just the black community, but as Americans and people in general in the world, that we need to figure out, because having mental health issues should no longer be looked at as, oh, you're crazy, or you're this or you're that. No, let's not make fun of people anymore. Let's not make fun of the kid in class who stutters. Let's not make fun of the kid in class who has Tourette's. Let's not talk about the ones with anxiety and depression. Let's help them. Let's just talk with them. Sometimes you never know. Somebody just may need a hug. But ADHD and ADD is very serious. It is very serious because there are a lot of things that can be attached to it. So people, if you're listening, let's make a difference. Let's figure it out. We need the psychologists and sociologists and doctors to let's find a solution that doesn't have to do with medicine. Let's try to troubleshoot the issue before we try to stuff pills down the kid's face. Let's figure out that issue first and try to give them some sort of natural solution, such as, okay, we're going to give you something that you can use to play with your fingers or something to keep you more focused, to stop you from tapping your feet in class and distracting others. Or let's start trying at home, where if you want to do something, you ask first before you just up and do it. Or let's normalize raising hands in the classroom so kids can start to learn, hey, okay, like, I shouldn't be yelling out. Even though I want to yell out and act on impulse, I can't. Let's figure it out, because the main question that a lot of kids ask is why. Why me? Why? But we never have an answer. So let's figure it out. Let's give them an answer. And that's all I'm here to talk to you guys about today, man. Like I said, my name's Christopher Manning, and I hope you guys have a great day today. Strive, live life, do your own thing, and let's make a change. Have a great day.